Why don't we start with Sarah? And are there bios in here? I know it was on the
There,
website.
yeah,
It should be.
Yep.
And
application questions.
So I'll start. Sarah, when did you move from Manchester to Dorset? I know it was pretty recent.
November,
Yeah.
yeah, but, we lived in Manchester about 5 years. It was basically our ski house, and so now we've bought our forever home.
yeah,
And I've been coming back here to ski and had a ski house at Stratton for 30 years, so not new to us. That's why I knew Jim Gray for like, ever since he started at the Dorset Church.
Did you go to the Dorset Church even when you were in Manchester?
We did.
Oh, okay.
And when we were in skiing, when the snow wasn't.
Yeah. That was a good time. All right. And where's your house now, Sarah?
It's on Route 30.
Yep.
It's, that great big 1786, federal style on the front, columns on the side,
Like a porch
with
on
a
the
big
side, yeah.
addition on the back, the 2-car garage. It replicates the front end.
are you still treasurer of the village?
I'm still, it didn't get me off the treasury.
Really?
For the village, no.
Oh, gosh, okay.
No, and Andrew is still in one of the village committees. I think it's either the design review board or the planning committee, but yes, we're still involved in village activities, but the village is smaller than Dorset, so. This would take,
But they don't,
go
but
with
that's for the village itself, right? So,
that's just
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
village, right?
yeah,
The-
so they
the
don't,
Municipal.
that's why I was wondering about the old, we get into issues of, here, people needing to be residents and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it turned out that the regulations changed in the village many years ago, where they just need a majority to be residents, which is good because it's such a small place. They wouldn't have many people to choose from. So we do still have a strong majority. And I'm an officer and not a member of the board anymore, so I'm not sure, no one's sure whether it would apply to me anyway.
Nice.
And you plan to continue?
I will, yeah. It isn't that time consuming, and we are in the process of hiring an assistant to the administrator for the office, so that person will take on assistant treasury roles.
You may be aware that we recently adopted brand new zoning regulations in the town that are quite extensive. I don't know if you've had a chance to look
Very
at them yet.
impressed,
Okay.
very impressed, because any committee that can generate that extensive a design guideline, has my respect. It's not easy to put together something on a committee basis of that nature.
It was not a short process.
No, definitely not. And
The
now it's
village
a little
needs to
bit,
do something similar. They will probably copy yours practically verbatim.
yeah, there's a lot in there that's kind of new, and so it is a little bit of a work in progress trying to find everything. But anyway. So you've already met with the design review committee or Kit or,
I haven't actually.
You haven't?
Arnie recommended that I consider it, and I know Arnie is our next door neighbor. But I haven't met the rest of the committee.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions?
No, that's a little unusual for us to get,
Well,
before
the
the
committee through Kit recommended the two.
Oh.
Okay.
So we can take
Not
that as
sure how
a,
they- Yeah,
Just got that
how it
approval.
manifested, but they must have felt
Arnie's word must have
well
a
enough.
lot of,
Yeah,
carries a lot of weight.
He's in a position to know that, isn't it?
the way that Kit presented it.
Okay.
But they're.
They're behind
The
it.
two are supported. As would be the norm.
just curious, not, you don't even need to answer, but, in corporate banking, where,
HSBC,
okay. I'm an old banker too, so.
you look familiar.
Well, I left commercial banking a bunch of years ago, now retired. but
In New York?
Yeah. Was with Chemical Bank, then First Boston Corp. And General Re Financial Securities.
Love to compare notes.
Absolutely. No, because I love seeing people with real finance experience too.
Anybody who says chemical probably knows a bunch of people I know.
Oh,
I was in it that long.
well, my wife and I were both there.
Okay.
Do you think we should make a motion one at a time to appoint, or
Yeah.
do we have a motion? to
Okay,
appoint?
I will make a motion to give the select board's blessing to the appointment of Sarah McClintock to the Design Review Board.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that was it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for stepping up. Okay, Jane, you're probably terrified now that you see how the process works.
Tough process.
Anyway, so I know you bought Kit's house there
Right.
on Route 30, so I've been watching what you've been doing, but can
It's taken a long time, but.
Yeah.
But, it's getting there.
and where were you before you bought that house? Were you also in Manchester?
I was in Manchester, we bought our forever home in Manchester 25 years ago. Coincidentally, we walked into Dorset Village Properties when we were looking and met Deke August in that very building. And he really wanted to sell us something in Dorset, but we just couldn't find anything, and we were looking for a project, and we bought a major project. And thought we lived happily ever after. My husband passed away a couple of years ago, and so serendipitously, I bought this property, which, as you know, was commercial, and now turning it into a residence. So my interaction with the design review committee has been presenting plans to them.
Mhm.
But like Sarah, there was no interview. It was more or less, I
Informal.
think, yeah.
Mhm.
And how did that process go with the Design Review Board?
It went great, and, yeah, and I actually went back last night for a little change request, and no, it's been fine. My husband was on the Development Review Board in Manchester,
Okay,
and so it was, it was interesting. He would come home with, and we'd talk about what went on, and it was, I was telling Kit about that. It was, there's a lot of stuff that happens, and I think the rules are more clear here, the bylaws, and so
No question.
it makes things easier in a
I
way.
think a lot of things are clearer here.
Well, they are now.
Yeah.
They're a little simpler, yeah.
Yeah, so, that, I think that's a good thing, because if you have a historic district, you
Yep.
you wanna keep the flavor of it, so.
exactly. So have you been on any of the boards or committees in Manchester all
No,
these years?
I have no. We were part-time for many, many years, and then my husband was full-time. I was still commuting, working, and we actually left for almost 5 years. Lived overseas and then came back full-time in like 2015. So,
Well, what exactly is the Vermont Campership Fund?
it is a nonprofit kind of umbrella that provides a way for people to give tax deductible donations to 4 summer camps that are members of the
Hmm.
fund. So these are for-profit camps, although none of them make a profit.
Right,
And 2 are residential old
okay,
summer camps. One is a music camp on Lake Dunmore, and one's a day camp over in
so it's
Williamstown.
a 501c3
Yeah,
that
yeah.
passes through, sort
So
of.
we support the camps and help them, and we don't do any, we don't go out there and solicit. It's their alum and their donors, and we help them out and provide resources, so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Grateful Hearts is a great organization.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fun.
Does anyone else have any more questions for Jane?
No, I got to know Jane a little bit because I did the wastewater system design
Oh, okay.
at her house and.
Great.
It's only good to hear it. But be great to have Jane on board.
So I'll make a motion that the select board provide its blessing to Jane Kennedy as an addition to the design review board.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, welcome, ladies, and thank you very
Thank you
much
very much.
for agreeing, and you both are free to go now.
Thank you.
Unless you want to stay.
That's all right.
We've got good stuff.
Bye.
Wonderful ethics ordinance draft. Is here.
If you recall, either at the February or January meeting, we covered some items about some legislation that was passed last year related to municipal ethics or ethics rules for municipal officials. And one of the required things is basically an ordinance to field complaints. And if you remember it, the previous meeting, we had dubbed the town manager and then the select board chair as the two officials that would receive complaints about town officials. And this kind of outlines that process, so to speak. And this document itself came from the League of Cities and Towns. It was kind of recommended by Attorney Barlow just to edit this document to kind of fit Dorset's needs, which really comes down to just kind of outlining the correct list of officials, and then more or less throwing the name town of Dorset in there. So it's the first time everybody's looking at it, so I'm not gonna, belabor it too much. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's no huge rush to adopt it tonight or anything like that, but it's just something to kind of take a look at and see if you have any questions or concerns with as far as the mechanics of like if and when and how something were to come up. This is kind of how it would, in theory, be written on paper and how it would be followed through.
There are like requirements for us to post up the process or anything like that?
It's
To communicate to people that there is a process for compliance or?
It's a good question. I mean, the ordinance itself, being an ordinance, will have a published.
Right, it'll be on the
notice
website.
Process, and like once it gets passed, it gets like a summary of it gets published in the newspaper. And then there's there's an appeal period that it goes through before it becomes active. That would be, one of the ways to get the word out there, Jim. You could do more, before that if you
I
wanted.
just wondered whether they required anything in particular.
Not on the front end, I don't think.
You know,
This is a state mandate rather than a
Yes.
suggestion.
Yes,
And
this is
so
the
that-
one, this is the part of it that is there's a, and I'll resend out the information, but there's a training.
Oh, yeah,
And then there's like
Yeah, yeah.
with the training, there's like an attestation form that you get that you did it, and then,
sent you my certificate.
yeah, I've got mine, I've got Jim's.
And what's the deadline?
It's kind of ongoing. I mean, it should be done at some point, like if you're gonna serve on the board, for a duration of time, it should be done probably sooner rather than later.
Okay,
It's not a terribly complex.
It's not hard.
No, I mean, there's really like,
It's a common sense, like an hour.
yeah, there's a little video and then there's, it's front loaded with the questions, and actually if you can, if you know the answers to the questions, you put them in there and then you passed, but you are supposed to watch the videos. And the other piece that we have to kind of peel back is that we've got to send out that bit of information to all of our boards, because it applies to them as well. So that's one thing that we have, that's one step that we haven't quite dove into yet. So.
I looked at the list of municipal officers. And I was kind of like, okay, I
Yeah.
was wondering, like, BCA member, does them, I don't know. Or something like that,
It's
I don't know.
generally the quasi judicial aspect of it. is typically with the boards. And then, officials in their kind of official capacity, like myself, or like,
Right.
the road crew.
So I'm noticing, it's like, doesn't include the justice of the peace and, or the,
I
because
don't, I
they
don't
don't
think,
have a real function that would
Yeah.
necessarily.
I don't think so. I mean, I think you could put them in there, but it wasn't they weren't listed in the definitions
Yeah, then
initially.
no need to go further than.
Yeah, and the other piece to maybe follow up on so that, I don't think I've sent it to Allison, would be the actual, code of ethics itself, which is a couple page thing that the state passed that, outlines what it is that, what it is that you could do that would get somebody to make a complaint, and then this would be the complaint process. And it's basically just, the board has a conflict of interest policy already. And it kind of, the code of ethics at the state level, it's a couple pages and it kind of just builds upon that stuff where it's, obviously monetary stuff, any involvement, from a kind of private business standpoint, and then any perceived, perceived conflict of interest or issue kind of fall into that document. And that's what, somebody would then have an ability to make a formal complaint.
The only thing that I have a question about, and we just have to read through this again, and I'm sure if it's
Mhm.
coming from the VLCT, I'm sure they considered this,
I think so.
is that it says enforcement against elected officers, and it talks about the chair of the legislative body meeting informally and all that. And I thought, well, what if it's against the chair of the legislative body? It doesn't really designate who else would that be. I mean, the presumption is it would be the vice chair who takes over, but if it was, or what if Henry and I together did something bad?
Mhm.
That could happen. Optimistic.
Yeah, no, I think
So that's
it's-
the only thing that I notice here is that there's not, if it's against the people who are making the decision, obviously you would recuse yourself.
Yeah, and the other nuance too is that I'm the general liaison
Right,
for that stuff. So if it's about,
you,
if it's about me or if it's about one of the board members, that kind of brings up a sticky wicket because
Right.
I work for the board. So
Yep.
it's like, there's a little bit of, who else?
well,
Who
it's
else
kind
would be
of
that
all encompassing. So
landing
of course, just about anybody that you would pick, if it were them, they would have
Correct,
issues. So,
yeah, correct. I mean, I'm happy to follow up with either Jim or the lead. if you
yeah,
like.
maybe just run it past Jim Barlow and just say,
Like,
if
who
he
else
thinks
would
it's
be the-
necessary to
Should
put
there
it.
be a
state that
waterfall,
says-
sort of a waterfall of who it
Correct.
goes to?
I mean, that would be the logical assumption, but
Okay.
if someone then comes and wants to file a complaint against me or against Rob and it's not in here, they might say, oh,
Right.
why
Or
didn't
the
you
whole board.
Or the
contemplate
whole
that?
board.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I got an over. Yep, I can do
So,
that.
that's the only thing I happen to notice.
Town clerk or something.
Mm,
Under the definition for designated complaint recipient, should it say town manager and select board chair? Because I don't see. It talks about. I don't see anywhere else where that's defined who those people are. Later, it talked about how.
We just
Complaint
approved that
recipient.
before, that Rob would be the designated.
Yeah,
I just
so-
don't know if it needs, if we
But-
want to
but it
say
could-
town manager or select
Yeah.
board
Yeah.
or if that's something we just approve in minutes with a motion.
I mean, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Frank. On the other hand, like if we chose to change it from Rob to somebody else, then we would
We could
change
just
the
do that.
ordinance. But here, it's just kind of leaving it more.
Make the ordinance and do an annual review and elect or appoint the recipient each year in a separate page so that this can stay.
Right, because it seems like some point we need to say specifically
Who
that.
is.
To
it's the
people so
town
they know what they're
manager.
doing. Yeah.
Right, and if that's like, yeah, once a year, we make a motion, it's in the minutes, then maybe that's fine.
Okay. I think
Because then we
that's-
don't have to update the whole code. if that
Right.
changes.
I can add some clarity to that, because I think the process that we've set up is for me to be the first, the
Recipient.
recipient. Yeah. And then in the chance that the complaint is against me, then it would be.
Yep.
The board chair would be the recipient, so I
Yep.
can edit that language.
Pastor Henry and most of us are just a bull.
Keep going down the
What,
line.
all three of us?
We're all going down together.
Okay. Any other comments at this point, or we? Okay, so let's just clarify those points.
Yep, I
and
got 2 edits and I can
we'll take another.
do that and I can round out some of that other information.
Okay.
For next time.
Housing committee update?
When we cover the memo, Henry, or did you wanna?
Well, not much has happened.
Yeah, I've got just a little bit of a couple sentences in there just about the status of the White and Burke work and that we have the proposal, basically the contract with them, which is in here, which has been gone back and forth with town council. And the proposal or the contract basically is for what it's gonna take for White and Burke to craft an RFP. To seek out development partners for a housing effort on Raptor Lane. And it outlines, how the process and how they get compensated and all that stuff.
In the contract, is it pretty look like a standard real estate brokerage sort
It
of
is
contract,
the
but
template that's
but the
used,
6 years that they use, is
that's
that a typical?
unique to them because of what they're doing. They're creating a relationship with the, with the
Seller.
the developing community in this case.
But
and
you're where the
the
seller
actual
technically.
developer, yeah. And sometimes that takes, sometimes that relationship can be
Well, that could,
created and then you've got permitting, you've got all kinds of other stuff that has to be kind of matriculated through and that can take, multiple.
well, I
years
figured, because they're,
Easily.
since they're supplemental fees based upon, assessed value after having built something, which
Correct.
takes time.
Yeah, right.
But I just didn't know whether the 6 years was normal. And then it's really is a little funky in that, they point out that they also represent buyers. But if they represent the seller and the buyer, then they have to quit the buyer side. It's like,
In this case, yes, they would stick with us.
but do they
Which initially
typically?
They wanted to make a choice as to which way they wanted to. That was edited a little bit.
Okay, because I was just wondering, it seems like, it gets awkward if they have relationships with a lot of the people who
Yeah.
might be our active buyers, then that creates that it's nice that's in there that they only represent us, but
Yeah.
they get the 3% from us instead of probably the 3% from the other end.
Yeah, and they were willing to change that language because it had said, they could take either side based on, some decision that they, based on whatever the benefit would be to them. So because we're investing quite a bit on the front end of it to get the RFP together and to do all that stuff, we're saying, you're working with us, so.
Good.
Let's see the thing through. So I think it's definitely a really unique thing that they're doing. And that you kind of see that in the agreement. It's like with again, the 6 years and some of the way that, the compensation based as part of the NSF value is a little different. But that's, essentially they're putting the puzzle pieces together, so to speak.
So the way I read this is that they're being compensated, by the hour for all the work that they're doing for us.
Yep.
And then in the end, they're getting compensated with a real estate, with a brokerage fee.
But they do, if they get the brokerage fee, then they apply what we paid them up front against that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's if they,
So it's like an advance against
A bit,
the commission.
yeah, because it's, this is my read anyway, that there's base fee and supplemental fee, and then the supplemental fee, which is based on assessed value,
Yeah.
comes
The
into
hour
play,
fee-
and then they give you the base fee as a credit against that.
Okay,
The hourly piece is basically what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah.
They just have a fee schedule and.
Yeah.
And I suspect that, it'll be the dollar amount to, manifest the RFP and kind of some of that process will be a similar, similar like 10 to 15,000, somewhere in there. Kind of from, when we sign this agreement, we're kind of moving forward with Joe developing the RFP, doing the outreach, all that stuff. Which is similar to what he did on the front end with a lot of the research, kind of the tire kicking. Us basically saying, this is what this is kind of the trajectory that we're on, and then saying, do you think it's a good path that we're on, more or less?
so it's 6 years, they get paid. And then,
If they find a development partner, we establish a relationship with
Yeah.
that entity, and then
and we go through with everything,
within 6 years, something gets built, and they're already.
but then our relationship with them ends.
It's a 6-year
Yeah,
relationship.
sure. Because I just was, they cover the entire 307 acres. And so does that even include our town offices? What,
It's a great point.
He has a
Yeah.
good point.
I guess there's no way of separating that, but maybe there is 10 acres around this.
Well, it'd be good to, sort of specify that, it's a portion of the property.
Yeah,
Right, and would it apply to, not that you could develop it, but the mountain biking trails and
yeah.
all the.
Because right now, attachment A, which describes it, brings up the whole 307 too.
Yeah, there's not, most of the hiking and biking stuff is, it's minor. The portions that are on this 307 acres are minor. The main part of the system is up on the town forest parcel.
Just,
So in my mind, it should just be the real estate development that this is all about.
which
Like
we're,
the developable area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which we're not sure what that's gonna be for exactly,
Right.
but it's, but
But-
pointing out that it's not the whole 307 acres.
Correct.
It's just,
yeah,
some portion of the 307 acres, actually, that's,
Right.
I think, a really good point.
Also, this contract, as I'm reading it, is not a 6-year contract, it's a 1-year contract for services. But if there is a closing,
Then
then within 6 years, then that's when the supplemental fee comes in. So in other words, their work where they're being paid hourly is going to be happening for a year, like with a term limit of 1 year. If you look at paragraph 15. So, it's not that they're gonna be working on this for 6 years, but they'll be devoting.
If their work leads to the.
Correct.
Yeah.
If it leads to something, then when that something happens.
Right.
Within a certain period, they get a supplemental fee.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, yep.
in the,
So if you want under C, I can, approximate lot size, we can see if we can put in, portion of, or.
or even like, what Allison said, the developable area.
Yeah,
or
and I
the
don't, we don't,
development area.
Because there's certainly
But we
parts
will
that are
know
not
by the time
developed.
it's appraised, we'll know what.
Well, one thing too, if we ended up,
Right in the first
our
paragraph,
preferences to
bring in
include
those partners.
affordable.
to include affordable.
Yeah.
workforce.
Over
So-
time. That's what I'm worried about. It's just,
right.
Yeah,
you could have said that, what's that development down in Manchester, where it got all flooded out a few years ago with Irene, that was
Mm,
originally workforce housing, and now it's,
it was, but it was more, it was, built and it was market rate. There was no,
Right,
restrictions, other than I think when it was initially bestowed to the first buyer, I think that there was some parameters that the seller had that where they were specifically trying to find, workforce folks to build their house, to get an acre and build their house. But after that, it's,
But what
To
you're
my
saying
knowledge,
is
it's
this is gonna
market
show
rate.
up in the RFP,
Yes.
it doesn't need to show up in this contract.
yeah, yes, yeah,
Okay.
and by virtue of the partners that, respond, that'll dictate portions of it. So if you have a potential development partner, maybe there's a private entity and maybe there's a nonprofit entity is interested in some of the duplexes, maybe some of the rentals, and they're the ones that would then provide that kind of affordable component, and then they would speak to it, manage it, figure it all out. And typically the funding that they're gonna be pulling has all of those kind of perpetuity bells and whistles. So, yeah, I think the delicate part here is gonna be with what we're trying to do. That percentage of, from a private developer, that percentage of like market rate versus the kind of missing middle workforce senior level stuff that we're trying to do, that there's not a lot of funding out there for, but there is some, and that's one of the reasons that I had initially said, well, we could probably wait on the RFP until the VHB study is done for the environmental stuff, just to make sure that there's nothing else that kind of gets kicked up. And Joe's comment was, it would be good to get this out there because there is some money that's gonna be doled out in the next few months, essentially, that might find its way to this project.
Okay.
So you don't wanna, miss out on that, I think
Right.
is kind of what he was saying.
Okay, so speaking to that, the RFP, how much do we need to tease out in that RFP, what what the town of Dorset wants to give up, wants to offer up?
I don't know, I think it's best to let White and Burke come up with a template. We've had long conversations about what it is our goals are and what we have. As far as leverage and assets, and, in their report, they kind of outline some of these are a few, sell it for $1, do some of the infrastructure. My thought is to let them pick and choose what kind of combination of things go into that to make it attractive enough to where you're gonna get, some level of response.
So that's the point at which the select board here, us, will then say, okay, yeah, we're willing to give the land for $1, we're willing
Well,
to.
so
pay for the permits.
you'll put the RFP out and then you'll get a response and
And
you'll
then we'll
have,
review them.
you'll review the responses and then you would have a development agreement with that developer, and that back and forth is when that'll.
But don't we
when
need
that'll
to
happen.
tease it a little bit in order to get the developers
Mhm.
interested? Because
Yeah,
otherwise they're gonna be like, oh God,
Well,
Dorset, that's
No, I'm sure.
the little thing.
At
it's not
some
worth my
level,
time.
some of the information that was in his report is going to find its way into that RFP that.
I mean, we've
The town owns the
we've
land,
done a lot of
towns-
work on it, a lot more than a lot of people have.
Mhm.
And I think that'll become clear.
Yeah,
the way
between the
RFP
due
is
diligence,
written.
the due diligence for the engineering stuff, and then, the whole leveraging it, potentially gifting portions of it, that's.
So I think we want to avoid suggesting that we might be willing to do
Right.
some other stuff because maybe they don't need that to get the deal
Well, and
done.
also, I
Right,
think we
right.
don't want to be so specific that we're either limiting someone or
That's
like, we
the-
don't know what they might envision or how a deal might work.
That's the
And I
delicate
think,
part of crafting the RFP, is
So-
to not make assumptions or preclude or
Right.
exclude.
Do we know how much money we've spent so far on all of the various studies and things that
Yeah.
have been done? Because it would be good to just
What do you
have
say,
that.
nine-
in
Part of
mind.
it's in the,
Nine-
part of it's in the
90?
package.
Yeah, 90,000.
Okay.
And much of that is taken from the ARPA money
Mhm.
that we received, so.
Yeah, some of it was that initial environmental work that we did
Yeah,
many years ago.
the initial
Um,
committee.
Yeah, yep, and then,
So if you look,
the rest of it has been, it's more specific,
some of it's listed.
due diligence work,
Mhm.
both the engineering and this, this work, which is kind of market, analysis and positioning.
Yeah, this in the finance report, it lists out 80,000 of
Right.
funds.
Rob, when it comes to approving the contract, if they're thinking there's money on the table, Is there a bit of a rush to get this approved? Like if can we run that by that language change by
My hope is that
Barlow?
if you are happy with everything else and the addition of, that phrase into that sentence on 4B.
Yep.
Yeah.
That you could approve it contingent upon that getting in there.
Okay.
If it doesn't get in there, then we'd have to come back to you all.
Okay.
Or if it's some iteration, we could maybe try to have some kind of special meeting.
Okay.
But I don't see that it's gonna be
A
a
problem,
problem. I don't think so. I don't think that that's really the intent of
right,
what they're.
right. I think it's
What they're
just
trying to
making
do.
it more clear.
So,
It's definitely, for the year, it's exclusive for sure.
Right.
That's, they have that year, but then,
It's exclusive and we can't decide to do anything else with it either.
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if this has been talked about or is not committee appropriate, but I know like the stuff going on with the school and then looking for a space to potentially build a new school. Has that been talked about for this place at all?
Well,
And is it like just a no, we're not doing it, or is it like, because if that was something that would be considered at all, the problem is they have the exclusive right,
Mm.
and then we would be paying them for whatever value, let's say, a school would be.
I don't, my
I know it's a
general
different
understanding
can of
is they have to be the catalyst to create that relationship between the town and the developer.
Right,
If it's not coming out of that if it's not coming out of the RFP process.
Yeah,
There definitely is some stickiness. about
they're the only
exclusivity,
broker,
but-
they're the only broker we can be using.
Correct.
But if
Yeah.
it does if we do a direct relationship, that's addressed in the contract, that if it's a direct relationship
it
and you do a
says,
deal, just make sure it isn't anybody they brought to us.
To-
owner agrees to direct all inquiries concerning the property from
Oh,
whatever
that's
source to
right.
the listing agency.
That's right.
But I mean, a institutional
Good point.
development is different than a housing.
But like, is
But
that
that-
clear in here? You know,
I never thought of that.
Probably not,
School
but
property.
the school stuff is very fluid.
it is very fluid.
It's certainly not gonna happen in the next year,
No,
so we'd have that option.
But if if,
I mean,
I mean, things are moving with the school stuff, and
that's a Jim question.
the talk is to identify a site, and this is a site.
well, at this point, we're, gonna try to look at it if there are some sites for building. But yes, go through the process of, approvals and bonds, bond approvals and all that, which
Mhm.
is,
Would you
is-
guys be doing a bunch of front end?
At
work
this
without a
point,
Purchase and sale agreement on the
last
site?
night we asked the architects to start looking at, pricing some stuff, which includes potentially finding property to build.
In a central location, like North Manchester.
And so it's a really good point. I hadn't thought about this
I think this
before.
property in particular would be very hard to turn into a school that's
The
big enough.
traffic,
Traffic, just the geography of what you need for buildings, playing fields, parking. I think it'd be a really hard.
Yeah, and we've already taken the prime
I think-
space.
I think it would be really challenging.
yeah, I'm not saying that it's
Mhm.
what we should do, I'm just saying if there's a situation like
Right.
that could arise, we
It-
should protect ourselves
it
from
would-
it in this
it would-
agreement.
Probably be worthwhile talking to Joe or whoever and just saying, okay, there's one thing going on. We don't think it's likely to happen, but,
Yeah.
but if it did, we wouldn't want to cover it under this agreement.
So did we, and maybe I'm getting confused, I thought we had already approved a budget for them to do the RFP. Or was that for the initial?
That was for the
That was for the
initial
report, I thought.
review. Yeah.
Okay, all right,
And they haven't spent that full,
right, okay,
Number
so
yet.
that was for
so there's
their
a little bit of
initial.
That was
capacity
the
in that. yeah.
Study 23,000, spent
Okay,
16 so
okay,
far.
that's what I was,
Yeah.
okay, I just,
So Rob, like, in this first paragraph where it's owner agrees to direct all inquiries to
Yep.
the listing agent, is there some language like from non-public sector entities?
I can
Right.
just see what they wanna, I mean, that's a,
Yeah,
Because there's like, sure, the school is one thing that, you know, who
I-
knows what chance, but what if there's something else?
I think it would be easy to get them to agree to it if we're just real specific, but
Yeah.
there is
because I
one
think-
potential.
well, I don't, in that context, I mean, I don't think we've really had any, it's, you know, the housing has really been the singular focus, so,
Right,
you know, I think that's,
the housing has been the ongoing focus and the school thing has just come up
Been-
recently,
yes,
so
correct.
nobody has really contemplated that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Um,
like, what if there's something else? I mean, what if we put this out there and some other something comes to us and says, you know what, we really like to do X there, and it is something that is, you know, it's not a developer, it's something else. We don't want it to be, well, now you've got to go talk to these people and then we're gonna have to pay them $200,000 because we're letting whatever
Well, the
happen.
only thing I think about that, Allison, the school is something totally like, because that is happening now and it's just brand new and no one's
Yeah.
contemplated it, but the
possibility.
need for housing and
Is so
the
great.
work over the years of talking to residents and saying, what
Do
are
you
things
want-
that
yeah.
we think we could
But-
do with this property,
Yeah,
that
that's
has
true.
been one of the things that they wanted.
Yeah.
So I don't really foresee, and it's for 1 year.
Yeah.
If they come back and they say, you know what, nobody's interested, you know, then we've got something else, but, you know, we
But it's
can always
a-
contemplate it when they come
Well,
back with some.
one way of dealing with it that might make some sense is to just specify that, you know, it's again, a portion of this property for the particular use identified in, you know, in appendix A, whatever.
right,
then we could-
specify the use to be
We
residential.
specify the use as
And someone that
residential.
comes with a non-residential use, then
That's a
that
different,
would be outside of what they're talking about.
because I was just thinking about it,
Where
if
does it
we
say
ended up
that?
in
Mm,
attachment
part
A,
A.
it says interested in partnering with private developer,
To construct a
housing.
housing project.
housing project.
Yeah, okay.
Because as long as it's specific to housing, because we could always have, you know, these guys are trying to do housing and somebody says, oh gee, you know, I'd actually like to build a little warehouse for my company on the property. And,
And
you know, would that
nothing
be
to it.
something, and then we,
I mean, I think that at that point, you know, what's the highest and best use for the community?
yeah,
You know, probably housing, so you tell them.
well, housing is,
Go
but,
find an industrial site.
but when we first looked at the property,
Yeah,
we
no,
thought about,
It was a wide.
you know, there were some
Yeah.
other,
Fire department, all sorts of things we
Yeah.
contemplated.
Yeah,
and-
I suggested a university, you know, or a research
Yeah,
facility or
institutional
Yeah.
stuff.
institutional
I
stuff.
think like a, you know, a commercial kitchen for all the, you know, food
Yeah.
businesses around here or something, if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to
Yeah.
put something like that
But
there.
that being said, but then we get back to how we started with this whole thing when we got Raptor Lane and
Yep.
we put the information out.
And
We
this is what we
had
got.
committees talking about
Yep.
things and housing
That's
was
why
a
we're
need.
here.
Because if it comes back that within a year, Weidenberg says, there's really no one that's interested in doing this kind of combination subsidized housing, whatever.
Mhm.
It could get back to the point where we're saying, okay, so what's
What
best for
should
the
we do?
town? Maybe
Yep.
we just sell off the lots and take the money and use that to lower taxes or do whatever else we're gonna do. I mean, at that point, we're just thinking about what's best
Yep.
for the townspeople, not just saying like warehouse fine, but that nobody wanted to see a warehouse up there. So I think that and again, given the fact that this is for a 1 year term, I don't think there's anything other than the school that would be enough of a necessity or
Yeah.
something that
fine.
would,
Of
Benefit
that
it.
level. of-
after a year, if we're nowhere or if it looks like it's not happening, that we can always say, okay, you know what? You did that and we're just not gonna move forward.
Yeah.
Because that's
And then
a
that's-
possibility.
I think
Yeah.
also the contract does say it's housing,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah.
Right, and
They
So
then,
may
I
already,
think-
may already be covered.
Well, you
Number
know, I just
three.
don't wanna limit ourselves too much before we
can
see what they
Just
can
confirm
come up
that
with.
with Joe, just to say, hey, there's a, you know, there's an outside chance that.
item 3 specifically
School district
references
Yeah.
the scope and
Nothing.
attachment A, which is for housing.
We,
There's one typo sort of thing, I think,
Where's
by
that?
the way, in insurance. So, paragraph 21. Says the listing agency's policies shall name the buyer as an additional insured. I think it's supposed to say seller. the end of 21, the last line. Because we're solid. Where are we? Seller or owner?
We're owner.
Yeah, we are owner. In case it would be. I just, it's a classic, oh, do you see the insurance thing, and then you're covered as well. And I was like, why would we care if the buyer is covered? Owner certificate, so,
If they come to the site and do something egregious that we need to fix.
maybe that's it. Maybe
I
that's-
think
Let's,
the intent is.
No, but that's as an insured, so,
So if,
or yeah, it could be.
let's just double
they're
check.
insuring both us and
Yeah.
the buyer under certain situations.
Okay,
Fine.
Right,
Based on
the
what-
buyer may come and do some different exploratory stuff on site.
And they're insuring the buyer, not us.
Okay,
That's
cool.
okay.
Yep.
Good. Yep, I misunderstood.
okay.
And that's the way that is, because that's Barlow's exact language, actually.
Okay.
That was an addition, that was maybe in the contract.
So motion to approve the contract as amended?
Second?
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
A very interesting point, Allison. I hadn't even thought of that with all the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, it's so hard to make an agreement that can cover any
You
possible,
can't, I mean, it's really hard.
you know.
Why they
Yeah.
pay, that's why they pay lawyers to do it.
Okay, speaking town office update.
In the packet, it's just, I think it's pay requisition number 8.
Yep.
Covers February. And I think the whole thing in there, you get a sense of a little over the 50% mark. It's somewhere in the manager's report. My estimation is that we're right now, right around maybe 2 to 3% of the budget. And that's just there's a chance that I'm wrong one way or the other down the road. And Yellow Green is kind of, it's interior stuff taking place now, so they're, things are moving along pretty quickly. And they are feeling good about trying to close down some of that, time that we lost, which relates to the increase in general conditions, which relates into some of this overage.
Right.
But I think generally it's going really well. I mean, I was in there today, the drywall's up, taping, mudding, every room is starting to look like a room, windows in. We cut a bunch of trees behind the building that were just really simply just too close.
The signing's
So-
going up.
Siding's going up, color scheme's great. Yeah, I think there's really been no hiccups for the last month or so.
What's Craig doing? He back on the
Good,
ground
yeah,
yet?
he's an animal, so he's,
He's back there?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, that he fell on the
Yeah.
tape, that's what.
What did he?
So he
On
fell
his,
on,
on his tape
he
measure.
fell on the roll of 3M tape. That's what,
Oh,
yeah. That's what broke his ribs.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
But he's awesome, so,
Yeah. He
things
is a-
are moving along, and today we met to kind of spec out basically this setup, the hybrid meeting setup for the new space. So that it can be cogent to where, folks, online can see and hear people in the room, and the folks in the room can see and hear people online, which is kind of the one thing that is difficult about the hybrid meetings. It's fine if you're, if you're online, hearing people online, it's
Yeah.
fine. Usually the board you can hear.
Yeah.
And, that's, the one part that we're gonna try to hopefully get right. And I'm pretty sure that we should be able to do that.
We're gonna do it in the room, like you're up front, everybody's in the front, like where would a screen be that we could all see it?
Yep, there's gonna be, a screen, at least one screen, possibly more. And the way the room's gonna be set up is that the screen's kind of gonna be over here and the table will be off at just a little bit of an angle, so the board, it will probably have to kind of look to the left a little bit.
Mhm.
And the screen will kind of directly face the audience.
Okay.
But it's a 85-inch TV screen.
Oh, my gosh,
So it's not small.
that's huge.
So, and then, microphones, aerial, in the middle of the room to kind of capture the whole thing. The technology has changed a ton, so, and that's one of the reasons we didn't spend it much here is because it's hard to repurpose that stuff, so it's gonna be, it should be a good setup. In the room itself, each part of the building has neat and unique character, which is fun.
Okay, good. So we need a motion to.
I move that we approve requisition number 8.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion to go to become the liquor control board.
I'll second that.
We should have little hats we could put on. I'm sure people understand. All right, all in favor, say aye, aye.
I,
Okay, wait, where are those?
Right after,
Church Street Hospitality.
maybe right after the old business.
Okay,
It's 3 Dorset, Barrow's House, Dorset Bakery, and Dorset Inn.
can we do them all in one or should we do them separately?
No, you can move the slate and I can just,
Okay,
write this there.
move the slate, Henry.
I move that we approve liquor licenses for the Barrows House, first class, third class, outside consumption, the Dorset Bakery, first class and outside consumption, and the Dorset Inn, first class, third class, and outside consumption.
Do you have a second? I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. I move that we go
Take our
recess
hats off.
and reconvene.
reconvene our select board meeting.
Okay, old business, new business.
Put the words earlier.
Reconvene.
Town office, we covered, East
Just ask
Dorset
what needed.
flooding, so the water was over Brookside Drive yesterday. Obviously, it's understandable, but, the snow's coming off, we got an inch plus of rain. Sunday night. So there's a lot of groundwater, a lot of water moving right now, so, we are trying to round out, the work of the engineer to get updated cost estimates so that we can reapply for FEMA funding to see if it's possible to move a portion of that road.
Mhm.
So we'll.
But the culvert, all of that is all working well.
Correct, yeah.
Not enough.
Yeah, no,
to
the
cover.
culvert allows enough of the water to pass through that it doesn't completely inundate Brookside for the length of time that it used to.
Yeah.
Like it used, it would be, 12 to 24 hours sometimes if the water wasn't able to get out. So,
Right.
Yeah, so there's 5 homes in there, so, for, I think about 6 hours yesterday, it would have been pretty ill-advised for any of the 5 homeowners to drive through the water.
Right, right.
Hmm.
How did that whole area that we did all the work on right over here, is all good?
That's Frank, nice and dry.
How is it, Frank?
Haven't had anybody complaining.
Nice and-
Okay.
nice
My
and
house is
dry.
dry.
Yeah, I
That's
think,
something to be said.
the Mad Tom runoff wasn't quite,
As bad?
as bad as it normally is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Although,
maybe
I
there's
mean,
still,
This morning when I woke up, the river pretty much woke me up. It was
Yeah.
loud.
it takes a while to come out, and I think the snowpack up top is still
Yeah.
present, so it may not,
Yeah, because the rivers around they look wild.
Yeah.
They're gushing.
Okay,
let's
good.
see, the East Dorset, village traffic speeding stuff. So I had a meeting with, MSK last week, to kick off the traffic calming design and review for the village here. Basically told them, gave them parameters, they're gonna start survey work. They're gonna try to, come up with something that, there's an aesthetic component, but then obviously there's a functional component to try to, narrow the road, make it look more like a village and
Mhm.
ultimately try to slow traffic down. And there's a chance that it does include, ideas for certain kinds of treatments like sidewalk and stuff like that. And I told them not to shy away from, some of the concepts of that, because there is there's enough activity that, if there was a sidewalk on 7 from Mad Tom to Village Street, for instance, and it was safely and nicely
Yeah.
designed, would it get used?
I think so.
Probably,
Just
yeah.
judging by the amount of walkers we have.
Yep, so I think that, that's just, if they do that, then it gets a little more complex once you get into, you really wanna do some of this stuff. There's a water crossing partway down 7, that was one of the things that they were scared of, and I told them just to, throw the ideas out there so that we can see them, and then we can worry about what's, what to be worried about when we get that far. So we put in our right-of-way permit for updating the signs on the Dorset side, which means the nice signs that we have to go away, and they'll go over to some town roads, and then the kind of boring signs that don't blink or flash will go on to the Route 30 section.
So these ones, will they be like the one over here that's permanently mounted?
Yeah. So I did my best. I ignored them for about 2 years. So, but that's good. So we'll end up kind of broadening the scope of where those units are throughout town, which is good, because we've got West Road and then Dorset Hollow are kind of two key areas that those signs will go over to and hopefully help out. Related Upper Hollow lot, there's no change there. Still waiting for an update as to kind of where we are in line. Short-term rentals, we think we had 2 more last month get registered, and we got it in here. I think it's really like 10 to 12 additional properties, I think, that are out there that I'm seeing in the software. Yeah, that seem like they're the ones that we have to chase.
Rob, with the Upper Hollow lot, do we have a sense for how much time that's gonna take? And have we been keeping the neighbors up to date on?
I don't have a time frame number from Chris, and I don't really have much of an update to give, other than the thought was to move forward and commission the permit design work
Mhm.
needed for compliance to get a permit,
Okay.
and that's related to slopes in the driveway.
Okay, and the neighbors have been
Stormwater.
notified of that.
They're aware
some
of
time
that.
ago,
They're just
right?
waiting for, when is that stuff gonna come
Okay.
forward?
You getting calls?
No, I just want to anticipate that since we had people who were inquiring, I want to make sure we're keeping them up
Yep.
to speed
Yep.
on it. Because a lot of times people just sort of forget and they think, oh, that must
Yeah,
have
my
dropped.
last interaction was there was some flagging in the general area,
Mhm.
and I don't know if that was related to some survey work that was done for us or for somebody else.
Okay.
That was
Flags are always good.
It was like a week or 2 ago.
Does Allison know the background of this?
No, but I did read something that we own
A
property up there.
10
so-
acre
It
lot.
was
We were
just
donated.
gifted it
Okay.
to us.
Yeah, and then are we looking to see what can be done and potentially resell and make money? Is that-
And it's rather a narrow, steep lot.
Mhm.
But there are several neighbors who expressed interest, but wanted to get quite a good deal.
Of course,
And, that,
but it's
that
the
whole
hollow.
situation.
Yep, that's a
Exactly.
good summary. A good summary. I think that's all, unless
Okay.
there's other new business, that's all.
Finance?
Delinquent taxes, and this is this is basically the old stuff, 129 versus 97 the year before. I'd say, we call the second installment was due last week, March 11th, and we still, there's so much online payment activity that happens that it actually now kind of delays our accounting of everything for about a week and a half. So I don't really have a number as far as how we are in terms of collections, but I don't have any indication that, things are like dramatically different or behind, so. As far as the fiscal year, when you back out the myriad of different things, that we have expense and grant revenue for, I'm saying that we're about, 68. We're a little bit under budget, actually, is what I'm saying.
Is that a trend you can hold?
Which is good. I don't know.
If it doesn't snow again.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we've dodged some bullets with some highway stuff. We've had some truck stuff that, turned out to not be bad,
Oh,
need work, but not like significant.
okay,
So
good.
we're kind of limping along there. So I think that we should be a little bit under or at
Okay.
when we're done, so. So let's talk about, I updated the ARPA, number under Whitenburg. Somebody, I think, mentioned it just a second ago, but, the allocation was up to 23 and so far we've spent around 16. And so that, there, some of the RFP development would be carried under that number until we, get beyond that, which I think is good because we should get, that should get you into RFPs going out, coming back, and then just kind of seeing what happens. Yeah. And as far as the monthly expense, nothing really, I mean, just personnel, little bit of equipment maintenance, some supplies, stuff like that.
Allison, I'll just mention under the ARPA funds. So we had designated the solar work on the new town office as some ARPA funds. When it says Mad Tom roadside, that's this site. That would be money that we wanted to designate to get this building torn down and make it a green space
Yeah.
and do something for the community. So when we chose to move the office over there, we wanted to make sure that we were also doing something on the East Dorset side to make this property a little bit nicer than it is right now.
And is there an official plan for that yet? Like, is there a design or is that? still
No,
being-
there's no drawings. There's a little subcommittee of residents that are working on ideas, and stuff like pavilions, gardens, playground are all kind
Yeah.
of like in the mix. I don't know that we'll go so far as to, hire somebody to do an official design.
Well, there was a survey.
They have the
but-
offer, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there is the capability and they have the offer to do it. It's just kind of up to them as to whether or not they feel, like it's necessary.
But there was a survey of just the local community.
Of how to use the space, and
Mhm.
green space was the thing that,
Yeah.
that came.
Yep, and now there's a little subcommittee that's basically saying, okay, what is
What do
green?
we do?
Within the
What-
green space.
Got it, yep.
How green is the green space?
What did it cost to demo the Chanticleer? Wasn't it like under 100,000?
Yeah, I'd say, to demo, what's
Clear
been
it out,
done,
yeah.
we still have some topsoil that's gonna get brought in so we can actually grow grass. Yeah, 80, probably with the stuff that's gotta get done this spring, probably 80, somewhere between 80 and 90,000.
So the 175 that we have earmarked for this is way
More than
overkill,
enough.
probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna buy a pavilion, it's
Yeah.
gonna,
Okay.
it's gonna do all the
Gonna
site
get rid
work,
of what's
it's gonna-
here,
Yeah,
and
it's gonna
then
get rid of what's here and then
turn
buy
it
a
into
whole bunch of
something.
stuff. That's the
Playgrounds are
idea.
very expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah,
The little stuff we
the
put
thought,
out
Henry,
there
is
was-
probably 75 for the demo.
Yeah, okay,
And then 100 for the rest of the stuff that goes
Okay.
on.
okay.
Beautiful.
Didn't we do a analysis in the very beginning of like, if we wanted to renovate this to be our town
Yeah,
offices?
yeah,
What, you remember what that number
Couple of
was?
$1 million.
it was over $1 million.
Over $1 million.
Yeah.
I thought it was a total.
It was-
Wasn't it?
No, it was, and this is like
A long time ago.
yes, different. It's like
So it would be
Pre-COVID.
2
a
million.
universe far away.
Yeah.
Today's
where,
money.
where things cost a lot less. It was
Yeah.
like 2016 or 17 maybe.
Okay,
And it was a range of like, I want to say 800 to like 1.2.
Yeah.
But I thought then we had
For
the
sure.
elevator.
And it
Didn't we
depended,
have the
yeah,
elevator
and
issue?
the elevator
Yeah.
component was what got it, into that 1.2
Right, the
range, I think,
elevator.
Jim.
Yeah.
And it really, all it was doing is like moving all the offices that were down here upstairs, aside from the town clerk,
Yeah.
and then, having a bit bigger
No additional space
space,
and no
Which-
additional
yeah,
vault
okay.
space.
correct.
I just keep getting called by you know who,
Oh. mhm.
yeah.
Yep, no,
Who complains about that?
Well, it's like, why aren't you making affordable housing out of this?
Yeah,
Out
no,
of
that
this.
was one of
Tell them
the
the septic will
survey,
never work, Henry.
Yeah,
That
well,
was-
I did
'Cause it
tell him
won't.
that. I did tell him that.
Good.
that was one of the survey items was, the potential for, renovations
a
into a
logical
couple
answer.
apartments and it was not received well.
Yeah.
That's the.
That's a logical and good answer. That's not what that person's looking for.
No, no, it's
And
hard to
it's-
tell him, no.
It's, part of it is trying to, keep within the kind of character of the village.
Correct.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right. A
Um,
large,
Under the bond note, in the finance report, does it make any sense to say what portion of that has been spent?
down here under debt.
Yep.
Is that, yeah, I can do that.
But I was thinking maybe there's a reason you weren't doing that
No.
since,
I have a spreadsheet.
Any other questions?
I move we accept the finance report as presented.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
I. You want to sign those too?
No.
Okay.
One man.
Is there anything left on your manager's report you haven't already talked
I'm
about?
gonna look. See,
Excellent job on the transition work on the Gambia Mountain Road
oh,
transition where pavement goes to,
the sweeping or
where the pavement
the grading?
grading,
The
yeah,
grading,
yeah, goes to dirt road.
They'll be back,
Yeah,
both the potholes and the road. crew.
yeah, right.
The never ending.
It's never forever,
Let's see. I think maybe the only, on highway related stuff, we've got some, bridge abutment on one of the bridges in the hollow. Nothing like crazy, but, trying to get some, final kind of quotations from a firm, so I've got a cost estimate for a grant application. Hoping to get that in, because that,
Is that
Big
put
bridge.
up by the Firestone property?
yes, yep.
Sorry, what does that mean? Bridge abutment?
Just a portion of the concrete, that the bridge sits on, it needs pretty significant work, and the stuff's expensive, so it's like, it needs to get done, but not necessarily tomorrow, so we can wait to apply for grant funding. If we get the grant funding, we'll do it. If not, we probably won't. We'll maybe some minor work, but not the larger scale stuff that, you'll get prescribed. And yeah, it's the northern, abutment on the bridge just before, or right at Firestone, right
Yep.
after, I think.
Right.
Which one's Firestone? By
Do
Coolidge
you
Lane?
know where?
Just
about
after Coolidge
Brooks
Lane.
Addington is?
Yep.
Just
Yeah.
after.
Okay, that bridge.
And yeah, that whole structure, the decking, part of that bridge is fairly new. The abutment part of it is, who knows what the age is, old and added on to many times. Fire districts, a little bit of more, the bids are out for Route 30 and then additional services. Really hoping that the pricing comes back, within this range of what the engineer's estimate was. If it does, then there's a good chance that, they would be able to do, they being the fire districts, those two projects. And then also bring the well online, within the money that they have allocated to, or money approval that they have to spend. Which is good.
When you say, trying to use outside funding as much as possible, is that,
So we have
Is
the
that
funding that is
grant?
propagating the ongoing water service work
Right.
is 4 years old. And we got, a certain amount of, forgiveness. So if we spend, the first $1 million, 75% of it is forgiven. And then the next, Oh, and then 25% of the next million, up to 5 million, 25% of each million is forgiven. Right now, we've spent, about a little over 3. So we want to spend
I got it.
the, you
Okay,
know, the
thank you.
the delta to pull down that money.
Yep, yep.
Because it's not in the 3 or 4 years before the funding cycle that we got in, there was nothing like this in terms of the loan terms, and then in the 5 years after, there's been nothing like.
You're
it.
never gonna get a better deal.
It's,
Right,
you know, that 10-year sequence is a pretty good example that we're probably not gonna see favorable lending terms like these for a while.
and where is the portion on Route 30, beginning and ending? Is
It's
that
it's
north?
mainly, it's south,
South.
it's mainly south of Church Street.
How far up does the water line go? North?
On
of
north,
Church Street?
it goes a little bit beyond Peace Street, you know where the Kelly's house is?
Yep.
and
There's that barn on the
just before the
left-hand side.
bridge, yeah. Yeah, the barn on the left is the last connection on the left.
Right.
So it goes a ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully that, a lot of good stuff can kind of come together quickly for them if the pricing comes back well. Well, we can not talk about it. And I've got an updated, timeline on the Prentice Pond study. It's now, they're expecting to have something complete by May or June. And that's we'll kind of see what comes back from that. And, the more that I contemplate it, the more that's going to be a good, starting point or reflection point for a whole bunch of other stuff related to infrastructure, related to that kind of middle of the village where if there's certain requirements
Mhm.
in a shorter time frame, then it may make us look at, the water line, the road itself,
Yeah.
the green, just a lot of that, and we may end up coming with a large, we're gonna do all this at one time type of deal, project, so.
Well,
But we'll see
what
what
were they
happens with that.
estimating if you had to replace that? What was it?
The dam?
800,000?
So,
It was a huge number, wasn't
yeah, I mean, it's kind of a little not great to talk about the numbers because I don't have real numbers.
it? Okay.
And the more that we talk about them,
They
the
were-
more
they
we'll
were
be
big
disappointed when we get the real numbers.
Okay.
But the general range of things was, somewhere between $500,000 to
Yep.
$750 for the dam
Yeah.
work. If it had, if you had to do a complete rehab. Our issue is that the dam has a drop inlet structure that regulates the water of the pond. And that drop inlet structure is failing. And that's got to get dealt with. But when we go to repair that, there's a really good chance that they're gonna make us do everything else that needs to get done on the dam.
And the state can make us do that.
Yes, I mean, they can say, in order to replace the drop inlet, you've got to do X, Y, and Z, because there's a permit to operate the dam.
Hmm.
So that would
Okay.
be part of the permit.
Okay.
Whether or not we say, hey, this is a burning thing and we're gonna fight with you, or we're gonna sit here and maybe wait until money falls from the sky or something like that.
Yeah.
And the structure is not in great shape. But it's not of the level of, hey, you have a gun to your head or anything like that yet.
Mhm.
That's what the report is.
Yeah.
For. So to kind of round out the answer to your question, Megan, if the water, there's a water line that goes through it, when you
Right.
kind of factor in some of that work, you start to get up to almost $1 million.
Yeah.
And that's just a back of the napkin thing.
Yep.
And unfortunately, there's no, what we're trying to do is come up with the report and then some digestion and recommendation from the engineers as to okay, what are the pots of money that we can start to look at to potentially leverage to do some of this stuff? Because right now, there's not a ton of clarity around what's available. Right. So, yep. And yeah, I think maybe one other little adjustment to the last one was some of the stuff in Washington. The Forest Service, For Allison, so the Velomont Trail is this kind of conceptual mountain bike trail that's gonna like mimic the long trail from, south to north. And it's gonna go through Dorset, and it's gonna try to connect over to the mountain bike trail itself is trying to connect to community mountain bike trails along the route north to south. They wanna come through Dorset. We're really excited about it. They have a bunch of money, they being the Forest Service, to build and, build trails, secure land, all that stuff. I'm kind of hearing now that there's, in terms of the Forest Service, flexibility and time frame, and some of that stuff is kind of called into question. So there may be a chance that there's a lot of land, conservation around the idea of routing the trail. So the effort is to try to conserve a bunch of property, and potentially have the trail go through it. And the stuff that's more adjacent to the town forest, there's a chance that now the Trust for Public Land, it was kind of the vehicle to help get it conserved. It usually ends up with some kind of public entity. There's a chance that the stuff close to us, they may be looking for us to take over ownership of it, which would be the stuff that's abuts Owl's Head, I think is a pretty natural fit. So we'll see where that kind of comes.
Is the Connor sale going through?
As far as I know, yeah.
It's not closed yet, though.
It hasn't closed. I think they have signed a purchase and sale agreement of some sort, so.
Is that state money or federal money? It must be state money. If it's
I
going
think
to
it's
state park.
state money. And there is other state money that, Trust for Public Land might be looking at to basically utilize something that would get purchased that we would take over ownership of, which is some other parcels, like on the top of Green Peak.
So that land would never have
That-
been developed anyways. I mean, it was, it's next to the big wetland. It's all steep slopes. It's almost inaccessible.
Doesn't mean that trees couldn't get cut and logging roads couldn't get put in and stuff like that. Some of the conservation value, maybe timber value isn't necessarily protected. So my sense with that is like, I say that, and then like within a month or two, we could have something in our lap. So that's that's my general sense, because the state money, I think is approved in either May or June. So there's a chance that the Trust for Public Land may want us to co-sign on the grant application, somewhere in that time frame for one of these lots potentially, if it's a good fit. So that they may be, Hayden, who was here a couple meetings ago, may be back to
Okay,
basically have the same conversation.
right.
With the town be interested.
Rob?
Yep.
What am I looking at in that corner? What is that all bubble wrapped up over there?
That is some kind of storage device for the town clerk.
Huh, okay.
It goes in the vault.
It goes
Actually,
in
no,
the
I think
vault,
it's,
okay.
no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I think it's something related to elections, actually.
Huh.
So,
Okay.
it's
Or the
in-
new town office.
It's in bubble wrap, so I don't really know.
Or
The machines, maybe the.
No,
No, it's definitely
um,
not the machines, because those are smaller, but maybe it was something that they were,
Yeah, Jen or
putting
Sandy
things
knows.
up on-
It was,
yeah. I was just curious. I thought maybe it was something for the new town office, but. I
It's
thought-
been there for quite a while.
Oh,
been there for a couple
what is that
months,
thing?
yeah. So the state occasionally has funding for,
It's where we
To
hide the
purchase
dead
stuff,
bodies.
and that's one of the reasons that they got it.
Yeah, just curious, we sit here and we look at it. Nobody ever.
I know
pays any
that-
Attention.
Being in the building, the small meeting room is almost the size of this room.
The small,
Yeah,
because when I drive by, I keep looking at that
It's
meeting
like-
space and I think to myself, oh my gosh, it's so small. We're never gonna fit anybody in there.
no, I think, I'm kind of trying to mimic the layout with chairs and stuff. If you go rows of whatever, rows of 10,
Yeah,
it's, you
significantly
can get
bigger.
multiple
Good.
rows of 10, so
Excellent.
that starts to add up pretty quick.
Yeah, okay.
And it's certainly not the gym.
Right.
Where it's this cavernous space, it's gonna feel much more intimate when if you get 80 people in there, but,
That's
I
okay.
think it's
And it's probably even a little bit
Feasible.
smaller than half the gym, right? When I was in there, I was trying
Yeah.
to imagine, a little
Yeah.
bit smaller.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
But
about,
still good,
if
good
you,
space.
if you, the meeting room in the Manchester Library is about 1,600 square feet.
Yeah.
It's like half of that, basically.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah,
A little more than half of that.
yeah, I remember going in
Like
there.
eight-
It's just so hard with
860.
space until
it
you actually
overflow?
sit.
Yeah,
Is there overflow
well, the
capability?
small
Yes.
meeting room, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little, it gets a little awkward in terms of like the overflow would be more like high, like you'd have a screen somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and speakers.
Yeah.
Okay.
They wouldn't necessarily be like, you know.
Well, you can always walk to the other room if you wanna say
Yep.
something.
You know, so and that's a kind of a fail safe, but you know, and it's a once a year.
Yeah.
You know, meeting, really.
I mean,
Um,
listen, you know, we've done it in this room.
We've had 50 people in this room before.
Yeah.
Very stuffy.
And we've done, what were we at the town meeting this year? 80 people?
Around, I think it
Around.
was in the mid-70s.
Okay.
Oh, at this town meeting?
Yeah.
This last one, yeah.
You know, and I think one of the nuances of that space is that you will, in theory, be able to have a hybrid town meeting if
Mhm.
you want. I mean, it's not, some of the statutes get a little strange around it, but, you know, I don't know, I don't see what it hurts. You know, if you wanted to, if you had the capability to do it easily.
Well, they were doing some legislation this year to try to make that easier.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I just know that I think the 1 year that we had it, I mean, there was 150 people at one point, like
Mhm.
125, 130, like,
Yep.
you know, they took the time to log in
Mhm.
and watch us, so. There may be some people that we could capture that way, I think is what
I
I'm
will
saying.
say as a parent, it's sometimes very hard to get to town meeting. Where like having
Yeah,
a Zoom on the
I-
screen on the side, but being
yeah,
able to
I
answer your
was
screaming
virtual
toddler.
at the school meeting
You
last
know?
night, I couldn't.
I think it
Physically
helps
be there,
attendance.
I
yeah.
was like, oh, go, oh, it's 6:58.
No, I
Yeah.
agree.
Well, I guess I
It
won't get
limits
there
the
now.
people that are coming.
Right, right.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
Think- Jim, just under other business.
Oh, right, you wanted to
have an
talk
update
school.
about this.
just wanted to give you, you know, a bit of an
And I-
update. Yeah.
You have that packet too that I can.
Well, I've got you know, there were a bunch of different options, you know, the key thing is we, you know, realize at this point, if you look at, you know, where we are today, you know, Courier is a pre-K to 5 school, only has 61 kids in it. Dorset K to 8 has 173, but honestly, it doesn't have that many Dorset kids. A lot, yeah,
60.
Where are the others
60%
from?
maybe?
Everyone. wants
from
to
all
do it.
around the district,
Yeah.
You can elect it.
Oh.
because we have school choice, so.
Canby,
Yeah.
Manchester.
Dorset, you know, with only our kids in it, Dorset would be like an empty school. It wouldn't function as well. You know, Floodbrook 261, MEMS 383, Sunderland 54 kids. We've got 5 different schools in Taconic Green. It is way too, you know, it's not working. Ideally, if you were to create a new system, you'd probably have pretty much one big elementary school, one big middle school, with the one complicating factor being the mountain towns.
Mhm.
And so we came up with, you know, essentially the proposals that we're looking at. There were 12 different options. Last night, the board picked 3 to do. We already have some basic financial, you know, stuff done on these. And, you know, one of the key things to note, everybody's saying like, whoa, if we don't do anything, then, you know, it doesn't cost us anything. All of our buildings are falling apart.
Mhm.
So you have to factor in, if we keep them open, how much are we gonna be spending on them over the next 30 years versus changing
right.
things, bonding, and
Yeah.
it's cheaper to actually make some changes potentially, you know, looking at it that way. It could be, you know, maybe the numbers are a little skewed. Where are you thinking?
No, I think it would be smart to acknowledge that they're a little, like, you know, when was the last capital type, you know,
Equipment
investment
project,
in any
yeah.
of these facilities and, you know, to equate to kind of the dollars that you're trying to compare to. That was my only kind of
Yeah,
thought, was that it's not
it's-
completely apples to apples. But
right.
but it's a good argument.
Well, when we did the facility study, you know, it was eye-popping to
there's-
me, and that the numbers that came up with
Yeah.
of what we had to spend
There's a lot of
to get them back in.
need.
I've been, we've been spending money on our buildings every year, and we're not spending anywhere near what, they're kind of suggesting we would have to be pouring into them. But that's one of the reasons they're sort of falling apart.
Right.
But anyway, so the whole
Deferred
idea
maintenance.
is, for
Yeah.
kids too.
Yeah.
Some of the keys are that we wanted to have, more kids together in a location. We wanted for each grade level, it's a heck of a lot better if for each grade level, you've got at least 2 classes. To make things more efficient, also to create, have the schools get to the size where you actually, it makes full sense to have a full-time nurse and a full-time librarian and a full-time this and that. So anyway, the 3 options looking at, 2 of them would continue to have Floodbrook open for elementary grades. And but one of them is looking at turning the current Manchester school into just an elementary for basically everybody else,
But
and then building a new middle school.
2 of the 3 closed doors, right?
What's that?
I said 2 of the 3 closed doors.
Exactly. That's what I was about to get. Because what you'd have, we were looking at, one is the old, as close to not doing anything
Yeah, a
possible,
little bit of shuffling.
which I'll kind of leave out for the moment. The other 2 are both of them closed Dorset, closed Courier, closed Sunderland, and Floodbrook becomes just a K-5 school
And K-5 for which?
for the mountain
Floodbrook
kids.
For the mountain.
The real issue there is, Floodbrook is a transportation problem.
Yeah.
Down to MEMS.
Geography.
Yeah. And
So- So, one of the plans actually has, in the long run, looks at getting rid of Floodbrook too. But I have a feeling that one's not gonna fly because it's, the kids in Weston trying to get to Manchester
it's
for.
It is, but it gets a
In
little like,
kindergarten and first grade.
an 8th grader can't come down here, but a 9th grader can. I mean, that's.
Well, that's
right?
what we're
What's the
talking
age?
about with the middle school. And 2 different options here, one looking at having the middle school be 6 to 8 versus 5 to 8.
Yeah,
And then all of the kids everywhere are gonna be traveling to the single central location for whatever the middle school is.
Yeah.
But these are all,
It gets
it's,
really sticky, and then the mountain gets to keep the K-4 with, what happens when that gets small, and how's that fair to the other?
but you've got,
communities that are
there are a lot of
further away?
moving pieces in this, because one of them is, what's Winhall gonna do in the long run too?
Yeah,
And, that could create, you could have, you,
if they want it
honestly, we're also
eventually, yeah.
looking at, I've got a meeting on Thursday with some of the folks in Rutland. And we're already talking to we're having discussions between the Meadowy School, where Paula,
Right.
and the Wells Springs, which is Wells Middletown Springs, because it makes all the sense of the world to pull all those kids together into the Meadowy School. So all this is forcing a lot of discussions
Yeah.
because we've been looking at this locally, but now it's on a statewide basis, everybody's being told they have to look at it.
Right.
So we're viewing this as we're ahead of the game because we've been talking about it for a couple of years, had a lot of community discussions. And the reason we're moving forward with it right now is because we've been thinking about what would work for us, our kids, or, what would make us, as the financial deal is K-5, they'd be at 147 kids. That we're living there now. So,
Because the reality is, middle school kids want to be in town. Right. Elementary school kids would be much safer not.
well, and last night, one of the big things that came up that I think we hadn't put enough weight on is not only, well, one of the options was to have them both on the same campus, and that was sort of like, we really don't think that makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
because, but also because of just traffic.
Yeah.
A lot to.
And, you know, we gotta realize that, you know, that it just, it's a whole lot of traffic already.
Right.
And so that's one of the first things we're doing is bringing the transportation.
Yeah.
So all that's happening. I just want to make sure
And I,
everybody's
well,
aware.
maybe just to round it out, the time frame that Randy had was potentially marching along where there would be actionable stuff like next town meeting, potentially.
To try to have a plan and to potentially do a bond vote, which would mean,
Wow.
you know,
Which
but
you're
then,
right.
but then you're
Just-
talking about, you know,
Maybe
construction of
aggressive,
any,
maybe not, but just.
construction of anything is over a couple of years.
Right.
So,
And then that
Correct,
kicks
but-
it out, but you'd start to see some shifts.
Yeah, I mean, I think when the superintendent puts a time frame together and looks like that, I think that's the general trajectory, so it's, people should be aware that it's not just, you know, that you guys are gonna look at these three things and it's gonna move forward until it doesn't.
Well, it's also because we know that, you know, what it looks like state-wise
Yeah.
right now,
It's-
odds are that this year they're gonna do something on the funding formula.
Yeah,
Move to a foundation formula, which would be, everybody gets, you know, you figure out what each district gets
and next year.
based
we'll-
upon their population. For us, because we've been pretty careful spending, we'd be just fine, and actually, that would probably work out well for us.
Mhm.
There are districts out there that I would say, that would only cover 80% of our budget. But it looks like that's gonna move, but then they'll probably push off a little bit. The idea of, you know, the governor presented the creating 5 school districts for the state, which would be drastic changes to the way we operate. We know that, you know, odds are they're not gonna come to final decisions on that in the next several weeks for this session, but they're gonna be trying to push for next year, making those changes. So that's to some degree why we wanna start,
Get ourselves set up.
at least have a plan out there.
I think it's better than, yep. Other than
So-
Someone else is potentially in charge and you're being told what to do.
Right.
It's never
Is
good.
there, on those little maps, there's a little dot sort of in this North Manchester area as like, that could be a site for a new middle school or maybe an elementary?
Nothing specific at this point.
Okay, just like that would be nice and central, sort of.
You know, I don't think it's been thought out well enough. They did look at, gee, you know, some people had ideas of some property that might be available.
Mhm.
And, you know, somebody threw out well, you know, Donnie Doorfields.
It's got a
It's
lot
not
of
big
room
enough.
there. Or the,
Yeah,
The driving range.
the driving range.
yeah, there's a
But
few
again,
parcels.
when you start to add fields in.
Yeah,
although-
it's just not
You got the rec.
You need a lot of
Right
space. You need a lot of space.
like Raptor Lane.
But,
To smooth out those mountains.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
Smooth out
A
the
little bit of
wall.
grading.
little blasting, a little grading,
The ledge.
some really big walls.
We're still hammering.
80-foot
I
retaining
didn't
wall.
mention, we're still hammering ledge over there.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
They missed a little bit for the driveway grading, so they're hammering ledge this week.
Always fun.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's important stuff.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
I'm just, the next scheduled select board meeting, I'm not gonna be here. So I'm happy to join one the week before or the week after, or miss if you are all gonna be here, go on without me, whatever you think's best.
April 15th.
Yes.
Is
No,
that vacation week or not?
No, it's the week before.
Okay.
it's my vacation.
The week after is vacation.
I mean, we could move it to the 8th.
I won't be here.
Where are you gonna?
None of your business.
Wow, we're working together for so long.
Just a little trip, so.
And the following Tuesday, I'm having offsite all day at Stowe.
Oh, wait, the 8th?
8th,
I'm here the 8th,
April.
April 8th. Yeah.
okay, is April 8th okay with you guys?
April 8th could work, yes.
Yeah, I don't have anything
Okay,
on the calendar.
so let's switch it to April 8th.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, and just so everyone knows, on June 17th, that meeting I will not be here. Because Hannah's getting.
We can just push her off a weekend and
Pretty sweetie, it'll be fine.
Just
one
I'll
quick thing,
leave, I'll
honey.
leave Henry in my charge, as long as the golf course is not open yet.
Yeah.
In
Thanks for being
June,
on that week too.
In June.
it better be open.
You said June 17th, right?
I saw somebody on.
Yeah. It's always the third Tuesday.
Yeah,
on Sunday.
regular
yeah.
third Tuesday, so.
I think I might be actually gone that week too. Yes, I'm gone then too.
Yeah.
I'll be in Maine.
The men will be in charge.
Yeah, well, you guys
Oh.
could always zoom in or.
Yeah, I mean, I can zoom in from Maine. I can't zoom in April. I'd be non-time zoned.
I'm going to be on an airplane. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thanks, guys. There was something.